I am a divorced man, 3 times. My parents are very disappointed in me, and they're not the only ones. I am disappointed and ashamed of myself as well. But I wish people understood that it is not 100% my fault. They don't understand social media and how it has ruined my life. Welcome to Human Heart Stories. My name is Julie, and today I will be telling a story called I Married a Woman Addicted to Her Phone. Please listen with me and see how this man's story begins and ends. My first wife. We were only teenagers. She was chosen by my parents. We hardly dated and got married. We did not get along, and 3 years later, we divorced. Her parents kept nagging her to divorce me and marry a rich man. I was also tired of our relationship. So it was both of us that wanted out of the marriage. My second wife. It was 2010. A friend and I went to China to find work as a driver. I met a very beautiful woman. But I did not know that there was another man she was just seeing right before me. He actually had the same job that I had and left the country shortly before I came and took over his position. Apparently, he left the job and left her as well. So I met this woman and brushed off the rumors about her and this previous man. 1 month later, she asked me to marry her. I said to her, "Oh, what is the rush? I just started this new job." She said, "If you don't marry me, I'm going to tell my parents and kill myself." I said, "Why are you overreacting like this?" "Because I am pregnant with your child." I was shocked. We had been dating for a little over a month, and she was already pregnant with my child? I was stressed. But she wrote me letter after letter, threatening to kill herself if I don't marry her. I called her to comfort her, but she was adamant. Perhaps she was worried I was going to leave her and take off like her previous boyfriend, so she wouldn't leave me alone. She started following me everywhere. Finally, I gave in and married her. I left the job and came back home to farm. During this time, online dating was growing in popularity. We had an older aunt in the neighborhood who was obsessed with online dating. She scouted rich men and would tell them fake, sorrowful stories so that they would send her money. And they did. My wife was good friends with this aunt, and they would hang out outside, chatting and laughing for hours. During this time, I found a new short-term job picking corn in another city. I left for a couple months for work, and when I returned, my wife was a brand new person. She picked fights with me and was constantly on her phone. Then she started comparing our relationship to the men she met online and said she was tired of fighting. Why am I always yelling at her when there are these other men who only speak kind and sweet words to her? That's what she said. Not long, she took off and said she wanted a divorce. I had enough as well, so fine, let's divorce. My parents were livid, but they didn't understand. So then, I decided that my next wife was going to be a younger woman, someone whom I can mold to my liking. I remarried in 2014. She was only a teenager. She didn't have much life experience, so anything she wasn't sure of, she would ask me, and I would teach her. A year later, we had our first child. Financially, it was tough, and finding a job was difficult. So I made the difficult decision to return to China as a driver. My wife was hesitant, but we had no other source of income, and we had our new baby, so she gave in. This was 2015. My marriage was going strong. My wife was a good housewife and very supportive of our difficult time. Then by 2016, my wife came to me and said, "Honey, I really want a smartphone. Will you please buy me one?" I said, "What do you want one for?" She said, "Well, no one uses a regular phone anymore. Everyone uses a phone to connect with friends and family on Facebook and WhatsApp. And I miss my parents so much. It's a good way for me to stay in contact with them." So I actually thought it was a great idea. It doesn't cost extra to call people from Messenger or other applications. When my next paycheck came, I bought her a new phone. When I gave it to her, she was extremely happy. When I left back for work, I would call her regularly each time I had signal. Things were going great. A month later, I returned home from work. My wife was now constantly in front of her phone, one hand holding her phone and her eyes glancing at me as she tries to hold a conversation while glancing back at her phone. She was not like before. Before, she would greet me happily, come run up to me, give me a hug, each time when I got home from work, and then she would also have dinner made already. This time when I returned, however, she greeted me quickly and looked back down at her phone. I asked her, "Is there anything for dinner?" She said, "Yes, I'll make dinner." I went to shower, and when I came back out, she was still on her phone. "Did you make dinner yet?" She said, "Oh, I forgot." Then she got up and went to the kitchen, her phone in one hand and a pan in her other, laughing and giggling at her phone. "Can you hurry with dinner? I'm starving," I said. "Yes, almost done. I just gotta finish this last episode here." Then she tried to multitask with her phone on the side, running to grab rice for her pot and running back to glance at her phone, giggling and laughing each time. Pause to look at her phone again. The stove had gone out and she didn't even notice. So I went to go light the fire. Then I decided to take over and help cook. She barely noticed and laughed and giggled at her phone the entire time. When dinner was done, I said, "Come eat." She said, "Go ahead, I'll come in a bit." So then, finally, she came to sit and sat beside me and our child, one spoon in her hand, the other on her phone, texting and writing back and forth on her phone. After dinner, I bathed our child and got ready for bed. I looked into our room and she was sitting next to the wall with her phone charged. My goodness, laughing and giggling at her phone. No awareness of anything else going on around her. So I fell asleep for a bit, and when I woke back up, she was still on her phone. I got frustrated and yelled at her to go to bed. She responded and said, "I am chatting with some friends right now. We're still having a good time. I'll come to bed when my phone is fully charged." Finally, she came to bed, but she stayed on her phone, writing messages back and forth. I fell asleep again, but woke up at midnight. I looked beside me and she was gone. When I got up, I saw her at the edge of our bed with her phone. She had somehow connected a long cord from outside of our room to charge her phone. The cord was long enough to just reach the edge of our bed. I mumbled to her, "It's late. Go to sleep." But she said, I'm just responding to friends. We have a group chat thing going on. The next morning, I got up early. I made lunch, and she was still sleeping. I went to wake her up, and as soon as she got up, she looked for her phone. I told her I was going outside to do some house chores. Lunch is already made, and for her to set the table in a little while. When I was done with my chores, I called her to set the table for lunch. When I got home, I saw her in the same spot by the kitchen where she was before I had left. I asked if lunch was set. She said, "Yes, it's all set." I went to the bedroom, and as soon as I came back out, she quickly got up, scrambled, and ran to light up the stove, her phone in one hand and her other hand prepping food. There was no lunch on the table. I said to her, "Why are you always on your phone? Give your phone a break." She said, "Stop yelling at me. In this day and age, everyone is on their phone." She put her phone down, but as soon as she heard her messenger beeped, ding, she picked up her phone again. I was so angry, but I have gone through a couple failed marriages already, so I wanted to have more patience with her. I wanted our marriage to work. As soon as the table was finally set, she resumed to acting like how she was the day before, busy on her phone. So I took our child and fed him as I ate. When we were done eating, she was still slowly eating her food, one spoonful at a time, pausing to respond to her phone, giggling, and then another spoonful. I told her, "Hurry, will you? We have to drop off our child to mom's and go finish some chores together. And why is it that the house is a complete mess? What is wrong with you?" She did not respond, continued with her phone and slow bites. I decided to drop off our child to mom's by myself. When I got there, my mom said to me, "Daughter in law is no longer the same person before she had her new phone. Now, with her new phone, she has neglected taking care of her child. He is always dirty and starving. It is your fault for buying her that new phone. You need to tell her to stop using it so much." As my mom rambled on, I could feel my head ready to explode. I knew that if I were to take away my wife's phone now, things would not go well. It would be like taking candy from a little kid. When I returned back home, my wife was busy on her phone with the charger plugged in. Then she says to me, without looking up, "Oh, are we ready to leave?" I said, "Yes. Can you help pack lunch? We may be gone a little while." I went to grab a few things, and when I turned back to her, she was still in her same position, laughing and texting on her phone. So I went ahead and packed lunch instead. I nagged at her, and finally she got up. But then she quickly changed her mind. "Oh no, my battery is almost out. Give me 5 more minutes, just 5 more minutes to charge it before we go." I was so irritated, but I waited outside. Outside, there were a few kids playing soccer. I'm not sure how long I was watching them until it dawned on me that my wife should be done by now. So I went back inside. She was hovered over her phone. I yelled at her, "Are you going to hurry? I've been waiting for you." She said, "Oh, it's almost done charging." "Well, if you keep touching it while it's charging, it will never get charged. Let's go." I was so frustrated. She saw I was angry and finally got up to leave. Later on in the evening, when we had returned home from our chores, I tried to communicate with my wife. I tried my best to be patient with her. So I sat my wife down and calmly told her, "Dear, I have some very important words to say to you, so I want you to listen, Put your phone down and pay attention well. She nodded at me. Okay. She put her phone down beside her. Then I continued. I want you to stop using your phone every second. It has disrupted your daily life. You don't even take care of our child anymore. He is always dirty. Make sure to give him a regular bath. Make sure he eats. As I spoke, my wife had already grabbed her phone, typing in a message, thumbing on her phone, just laughing and giggling. I said to her, Are you listening to me? She said, Yes, I am. So I continued, Do you know that I worked this hard to provide for our family? And I just need you to take care of our child and things around the house. I am leaving for work tomorrow again. I'll be gone about another month. When I'm gone, I want you to take care of the house, but most importantly, take care of our child. She giggled at her phone, browsing back and forth. She was not even paying attention to me. I got upset. I ran out of ideas. I bit my tongue. Deep breath. Patience. Reminding myself that she is my third wife and I must be patient. So I just gave up and stopped. Later, around 9 p.m., I got ready for bed. But then she got up, ready to leave the house. I asked, Where are you going? She said, My phone card ran out. I need to go buy a new one. I said, Didn't you already use 2 phone cards today? Oh, 2 is actually not that much. I usually go through 4 or 5 in a day. I watched in disbelief as she ran out of the house, in the dark, down the street to the only small shop that was still open. Being with a spouse addicted to her phone is a nightmare. And then I wondered how many nights she had gone out to buy her phone cards. I returned to work in China. A week later, my mom called me. Son, your life back home is in chaos. If you don't come back home to watch your wife, you won't have a wife when you come back. She is out partying every day and doesn't even watch her son. My mom is typically a calm, doesn't like to gossip type of person, so I knew it was severe by the time something like this came out of her mouth. I was stressed about my wife, but the job here paid decent and they have little flexibility for their workers. I couldn't just leave or I would lose my job. I was finally able to come back home 2 weeks later. When I got home, my wife was not even home. She wouldn't pick up my phone calls either. I went to my parents and our son was there. I got word that she was out at this dance club restaurant. When I got to the restaurant, I ran into an older woman. She asked what I was doing there because I looked lost and upset. I said, I came here to pick up my wife. She asked, Who's your wife? I looked around and found her drinking beer with a group of people, the loudest and wildest group in the place. She saw me, but totally ignored me. I pointed to my wife, and the woman gasped in disbelief. That's your wife? Oh, boy. Son, I thought she was a single woman all this time. I saw her at this wedding last weekend, and she was dancing and drinking the night away with so many different men. Son, you have to make sure your wife does not act like that. I was so embarrassed. My face turned bright red in anger and shame. I immediately went up to my wife and told her we needed to leave. She made a scene and had the nerve to tell me she was not done hanging out with her friends. I looked closely at my wife and barely recognized her. She wore heavy makeup, had bleached her hair, and wore an outfit style that I had never seen on her before. I grabbed her by the arm and squeezed it hard, and she knew she had no choice. That night she was so angry at me. How dare I embarrass her in front of her friends? She didn't even get to say goodbye. Then she went on and on about how she was sick and tired of having such a poor husband. All of her friends have money because they have husbands with good jobs. She is ashamed of me because I have a low level job. We slept facing opposite walls, her phone in her hands. Our marriage became cold and empty. I felt like a widow. I started doing everything by myself. I no longer nagged or yelled at her for being on her phone. I took care of our child mostly. I then found out that she was messaging all these different men from different areas of town or just different men that she met online. She was no longer afraid to hide it from me. She compared me to all of these men. Then one day, she had had enough of me and took off. She filed for a divorce. I gave in and went through with the divorce. I felt so bad about myself. For the first time, my mom actually comforted me. She said, "Son, don't feel bad. It's okay. I have never seen a wife like that." Sometimes I think about my first wife and regret being too childish at the time and not working it out with her. Today, I am still single. I want to eventually be in a relationship again, but marriage scares me. There's a piece of me that still has hope, but for now, I would rather be single. This story ends here. Thank you for listening to Human Heart Stories. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next story.